Working for yourself is awesome. You do what you love, you build your own schedule, no boss is pushing you around, you choose your own pace, and if your work is remote, you can even live wherever you want. Sounds perfect, right? But it can't all be that sweet. And yeah, there are a lot of things people don't think about before going freelance, and they often come as an unpleasant surprise. In this video, I'll talk about what you actually face when working freelance. And I left my office job about 17 years ago. My experience and the experience of people I know is mostly in visual production, photographers, videographers, designers, and so on. But I think that the general points apply to almost any field. But of course, every niche has its specifics. When you work a regular job, there's usually a marketing department, salespeople, advertising. You just do your work. On freelance, you do the work and you have to sell yourself. If you don't sell yourself, you don't get work, obviously. The good news is that today there are many ways to promote yourself. Social media, freelance platforms, paid advertising, or you can manually search for clients and send custom proposals, a lot of options. The bad news is that all of this requires significant resources. For example, you can try finding clients on freelance platforms. That's actually where I started. Probably the most well-known international one right now is Upwork. It looks simple, but it takes a lot of time. Even just filling out your profile properly isn't that easy. And most importantly, you'll have to sit there and monitor new job posts and respond to them. And writing a quality proposal also takes time, and there's still no guarantee you'll be chosen. Another example, social media. The competition is huge. For your account to actually work, you need to invest a lot of time. Planning content, shooting, editing, writing captions. And you also have to learn how to do this effectively. I have about 60k followers on my main Instagram account and around 30, I think, on my English one, and of course that brings in clients. But if you go there and just scroll through the feed, imagine how much work went into building those accounts. Sales is an extremely important and resource-heavy part of freelance. Speaking of time, you'll have to organize your own schedule. Everyone thinks, what's the problem? That sounds great, and yes, it is, honestly. But it's also a skill you have to develop. Office work conditions you to have something fixed and immovable, a solid structure around which everything else is built. That structure is your working hours, of course. You know you must be at work, let's say at 9, and you leave at 6. There is no alternative because that's your agreement with the employer. So you plan your routine around it before work, after work, and your only real freedom is on weekends. And honestly, many people don't even plan those. But then that foundation disappears, many people feel lost. I have a friend who used to work at the same company I left his state. For a long time he was shocked. How can you go to bed at 4 or 5 a.m. and wake up at 1 p.m? That's so weird, so weird. Well, he eventually quit too. Now sometimes I open Telegram to message him and see he was last online at 7 a.m. And I know for sure that wasn't when he woke up, that was right before going to sleep. So yeah, he doesn't find it weird anymore. You'll have a lot of temptations. Watching just one more episode, scrolling social media, playing games. You'll have to fight it, or it will be very hard to build a freelance career. And as a follow-up to that, you'll also have to organize your workflow. I decided to make this a separate point because that's very important. When you work in a company, especially a large one, processes and responsibilities are usually clearly defined. You typically don't wear a ton of hats. On freelance, often, not always, but often, you do. For example, my niche is product photography. Props, backgrounds, planning angles, deciding the order in which to shoot the products, figuring out how everything will be mounted, leaving notes for the retoucher, naming files, organizing folders, etc., etc. If this preparation isn't in place, the same job can easily take 3 to 5 times longer. And, as we all know, time is money. You'll have to handle financial questions yourself. Again, with a stable job and a predictable salary, maybe plus some commissions, you more or less know how much money you'll have each month. It's relatively easy to list your regular expenses in a spreadsheet, food, utilities, savings or loan payments. You check that it fits your budget and you're good. Although honestly many people don't even do that. On freelance, you absolutely must. If you own your home and maybe have some basic passive income, you probably won't starve. But if you're not that lucky, tracking your money becomes critically important. And it's slightly more complicated because besides personal expenses, you now have business expenses. You'll need to calculate taxes and actually pay them. In some countries, when you're employed, your employer handles taxes, and many people don't even know how much gets paid to the government because they never do it themselves. Here, they'll find out. You'll also need to set money aside. Well, if you can, obviously. If you hire a retoucher, for example, don't forget about that expense. I don't want to scare you, you don't need a degree in economics, it's all relatively simple, but you do have to do it. Yes, I skipped the very first stage today, the learning phase, building your initial portfolio and skills. That's a separate topic. But if you don't even have that yet and you're planning to quit your job, learn and then start working, first, don't believe course sellers who promise guaranteed employment. They are usually lying, to be honest. Second, you should save enough money to fully support yourself for at least 6 months. Or, if your spouse is working, have a very honest conversation about a temporary drop in your lifestyle. If you're like me and prefer not to talk to strangers unless absolutely necessary, I've got bad news. You'll have to. And you'll need to learn how to do it well. Because this skill affects whether you get the job, how much you get paid, and the chances of future conflicts. And negotiation is not about just promising the client everything they want. You actually have to deliver later so the client stays satisfied. But on the other hand, their responsibilities must also be clearly discussed. Otherwise, unpleasant surprises are very likely. For example, you didn't specify that the product must be new. The client sends you scratched, dirty samples. Now you're spending an extra hour retouching every single shot. And yes, this really happens. The client may not mean any harm. They just assume everything can be fixed in Photoshop. You have to clearly state that items must be new, or that scratched items will cost more to process. We spell everything out very carefully in the contract, and it saves us from a huge number of potential problems. So yes, negotiations are part of the job too. Despite everything I mentioned, quitting my job and going freelance in 2008 was one of the best decisions of my life. I do what I want, work with who I want, spend time on things I enjoy, and nobody tells me what to do or how to do things. It's amazing. Over time, you'll find assistants and delegate the tasks you really don't like doing. I'm not trying to demotivate anyone, quite the opposite. Just remember, besides motivation, which can sometimes blind you, to be honest, and some infogurus happily take advantage of that, you also need a sober assessment of the risks. Don't forget to like the video, and if you already work for yourself, share in the comments what was hardest for you. See you in the next one. Bye.